I still don't have a total name for this. I said that when I talked to Everett and when I talked to Tim, and I still don't have a general name for this. This is your Circling Seattle Sports preseason preview for the Seattle Kraken as the preseason winds down. This will come out the morning of the season opener, the home opener. They're the same thing this year, just as they were last year when they opened on a Tuesday at midday, which is still stupid. Um, nope, wrong side. Miracle over there, Jade down there, with Gert in the background of one
Hmm.
of us at least. I don't know. I lost my son. I don't know where he is.
I'm calling CPS.
CPA is where we'll be tomorrow. Um, yeah, it is. There's been a lot of the same sort of storylines this off season. The initial hope in the beginning of the off season that the team would spend in free agency, and that they'd be aggressive. That messaging seemed to turn around and be, oh, actually, well, we thought we would, and not really. They did not really do that. The big free agent acquisition was what? Ryan Lindgren, the trade for Mason Marchment. We've talked about the moves that they've made. Season starts tomorrow for them. I mean, everybody else is going on. Well, not everybody else, but a good amount of them have already started, right? Um, I think the first topic I'll go off of, oh, interesting, is what you guys have thought about the Lane Lambert run practices, the Lane Lambert era so far. We've heard a little bit, we've seen a little bit, right? With seeing how he runs his practices, seeing how he runs those sessions, the comment non-practice related about John Hayden and sticking up for, each other and that they'd gladly kill off penalties, when it's stuff like that sticks out to me at least. In some regards, it's similar to past iterations of Kraken coaches, where he won't name the starting goaltender the morning of. We'll have to wait, which is wonderful because my graphics will have to wait. I will have to sit there and watch warm-ups. Um, yeah, initial question, just general thoughts on the Lane Lambert era. Uh, to start off with, it's very early. We haven't played game one officially yet. Um, Miracle, since your hands are crossed and you seem to have. Oh, we'll go to you first. What you've seen from Lane, your thoughts there, and then Jade, to you and your new nails, which I didn't get the invite apparently because I'm still the same.
I'll invite you next time, don't worry. I am cautiously optimistic. I like what we've seen in practice. Like we've talked a little bit about it, how he tends to stop practice if shit isn't going well and explain why it's not going well and how it should be going. I like that. I think that's going to be helpful for the guys because a lot of times in the past we've seen drills just kind of fizzle out or, they exist for a reason, but nobody really knows what the reason is. So I think that's going to be helpful. I also really like that he screams, man, that dude projects. Like everybody on the ice is going to hear what he's got to say when he's instructing, and I think that's nice. I don't know. It seems nice so far. Like you said, we haven't had a real first game yet, and I mean, everybody else, the team has been singing his praises so far, so we'll see. But so far, so good, in my opinion. I'm interested to see how the first couple actual season games go, but I don't really have anything that I'm like, oh my God, this is a red flag for me yet. So we'll see.
I largely second all of that. I enjoy that he like makes his presence known. He makes it very clear what he wants the guys doing, and I think that that's something that they needed. Um, there, I didn't hate what we like everybody saw in the preseason. So I'm feeling a little bit better about that hiring than I did initially. I feel a little bit more like maybe this will end up being a good thing. And I don't think that there is that high of expectations for the season just as a whole. So I think that that kind of it's going to give him a little bit of like leeway to, not have the best year ever with the team and uh that's just gonna be what it is because of the team that he's coaching. So I think that kind of no matter what he does, it's gonna be, I don't know if better is the right word, but like it's gonna be better is the only word that I can think of.
It has been interesting as what was it, Poston comes into the frame here. The mention of how the players have talked about it's been nice as I re-download the NHL app because I'm gonna need that again. Um, Hearing how much the the training camp let's talk about structure. Um, how that's we've heard it again and again and again. It's been interesting being around the Mariners lately. It feels like um every coach speak you could use comes out of Dan Wilson. It feels like structure has become one of those, beaten to death coaching words. Um wow, I'm re-downloading the NHL app and I'm trying to get everything started because they're doing everything and it played a goal horn noise for me, so that's nice, I guess. Um, Thank you, apparently. Uh, but yeah, I do think the structure will help. I do think, the clear vision of what this coaching staff wants from the players will be good, because and it's not to demean or dismiss what the previous coaching staffs did, right? I'm not saying, oh, Dan Bylsma sucks. I'm not saying Coach Hackstall, Dave Hackstall sucks. But it just seems like when you don't have superstars to rely on, you don't have a line you can go and say, we're double shifting you, we're down by a goal, we need you to go and get something, right? When you're playing this largely team by committee, uh, it needs to be just that. It needs to be a team, right? You need not to repeat what you saw in 22 and 23 because a lot of those shooting numbers are unsustainable. But you do need them. You need them to play four lines. You need the deep pairings to be deep. Um, and I think, you know, the structure will help. Uh, Obviously, being hurt like they are does not help. That is not ideal. They can't really control that, but having Capo Caco out for the periods of time he's going to be out, having Riker Evans out will hurt your depth there. Yeah, trust me, I get it. Um, it sounds like Brandon Montour could be good to go for tomorrow. Anyway, we'll get to that stuff. But yeah, I do think the structure should help raise this team's level. I'm not saying a ton. I'm not saying they're making the playoffs. I'm not saying they're going to go to a cup, but I'm saying it should at least, prevent them from being inconsistently inconsistent, right? Like some level should be set here, which is, you know, that'll be nice to have. I don't like, the as much as beating the great teams in this league and then turning around and losing to the horrible teams in this league can be exhilarating at times. I'd like some set idea of what this franchise is going to be, right? And I think a lot of the fan base wants to know. They're going to invest their time, their money, their emotions into a team. I'm sure they'd like to get some idea of what's going on instead of being whipped back and forth, with expectation, reality, and hope, right? So I think that structure too goes to the defensive side of things, right? Just you're paying as much money as you are to the decor, to those different respective players. You can't be as bad as you were defensively, right? You cannot
Yeah.
be that poor. Um, you know, It is interesting. You go to some of I was poking around some of the different like advanced stats, so to say, for the defense. And, for a guy who I was worried about, admittedly, uh, dumb and all, when they gave him that extension, Adam Larson, like point share wise, was pretty high up for the Kraken, on Hockey Reference. I know that doesn't mean he's the greatest player of all time, and it's not the one true
It does to me. No, I'm just kidding.
Scott to use.
That's all that
You know what I
matters.
mean? But yeah, really interested to see how things go there. I will pause for a minute here, and to you guys, this will be like, what is he talking about? And I'm gonna put it to our segment with Tim. Uh, Tim Booth with the Seattle Times, formerly with the Associated Press, sat down, talked about a number of things. You will hear from him here, and you'll hear from us in a little bit. The Circling Seattle Sports Seattle Kraken preview. I know Tim has loved every bit of the preseason. He loves how long it is. He loves, all the camp stuff we're doing. Yeah, it's crazy that I'm just glad next year we'll have the 84 games and it feels like what, 3 days of camp. I don't know what it is exactly, but it'll be less than this.
I think it's 13 days. Next year, as part of the new CBAs, that's all camp is 13 days.
I
And
can
I
live
think
with
it's
that.
maybe two preseason games, something like that.
I think
It's
so.
really short.
It just feels like we've been like in the preseason and doing camp stuff forever, and I'm tired of it already. Um, this is of course continuing the Seattle Kraken season preview sort of thing. Tim Booth with the Seattle Times previously, Associated Press. I guess he likes Central Washington University, something like that. It's great to have Tim on. I've learned a lot from Tim the last few years. As much as he doesn't want to hear that, he just wants to call me bald. So Tim, I'll go into it. Get going first. The three goalies. I know the goaltender situation in Seattle has been a major topic of discussion by both, obviously, us in the local media, national media. Like it feels like whenever they talk about the Kraken, they're mentioning the goalies. The three goalie idea. I know that's not certified. They've talked about it. We're probably going to see more Philip Grubauer tonight after I believe Matt Murray got the whole game in Vancouver. I don't know. What do you think about the three goalie idea? Can it work, especially considering the condensed schedule and anything I guess you've seen out of the two goaltenders, whether it be in camp or limited preseason action? Just the goaltender situation. How do you look at it? Because I think it's fascinating because you've got Nike Coco down in Coachella Valley, and I would like for him to like continue his development there. But if you send Matt Murray down, you just having him sit on the shelf. I don't. How do you view the goalie situation here?
Tenuous, I guess, would be one way to describe it. Like I think the three goalie idea can work, and they have the cap space in order to make it work. I think that's the number one thing is carrying an extra goalie doesn't hamper them in that capacity. Like they can have three goalies, they're not, up against the cap. It works. It's not going to eat up a roster spot from that standpoint. But you're in a really weird spot because you brought up a great point there because you want your young guys down at Coachella to be playing. You want them to be gaining ice time. And if you send Matt Murray down there or you send Philip Grubauer down there, that is going to be a lost opportunity. So you've kind of put yourself in the position where you kind of have to carry the three on your NHL roster. Whether that actually means you're rotating three guys, that's the part I think we have to wait and see it play out because Joey's clearly number one, and Joey's going to get the bulk of the playing time, and Joey should get the bulk of the playing time. Um, is Groovy fixed? I think that's the big thing. And to your point, like him playing in theory, an entire preseason game will be a good test to see where he's at right now. Um, but you're gonna at some point you're gonna have to make that determination whether you feel like he is at a level you can throw him out there for an NHL game and see what you have. He has a lot of incentive to be adequate. I don't know if he's ever going to be good again, but he has a lot of incentive to be adequate, both financially because of the structure of his contract, and no player wants to go through a buyout and then have to go sign a veteran minimum kind of deal or a very minuscule financial deal that maybe he would get elsewhere. But he also has the entire specter of the Olympics and the fact that he's already been named to the German team for the Olympics and the fact that Germany has like no other goalies. Like they actually have decent um a couple of decent players like Leon Draisaitl, Morris Seitzer, like that you have a handful of really good NHL level players, but Philip Grubauer is your only like proven goalie. that they're going to take with them to Milan for the Olympics. So he has that incentive to go out there and show that you can throw him out there every third night or every third game, and you're going to get a NHL replacement level performance, because that's what they did not get last year. They did not get NHL replacement level performance out of their backup goalie, and it cost them a lot of points, especially in the first half of the season when they were teetering whether they were going to be in or be out of, not contention, but at least the conversation. And then you have Matt Murray, who by all accounts is just a straight up veteran. Like, he understands what his role would be. He understands why he's here. He like To me, the idea of him being on the roster to start the season is beyond the break glass in case of emergency, level of concern. It's okay. Gruby just doesn't have it anymore to the level that we need. Okay, now it's going to be, two Joey games, one Matt Murray game, one Joey game, one Matt Murray game, and then they're playing San Jose, or maybe San Jose is a bad example. They're playing Chicago, or someone who's still in a rebuild mode. Okay, Groovy, you're going to get that game, but his opportunities are going to be really limited. So, um, I I think they can. Going back to your original question, yes, they can carry three, and I think it works to carry three, and I understand why they very likely will carry three. How it's all implemented, I think, is going to be the really fascinating piece to watch. And frankly, they might make the decision before the opener that, hey, Gruby just doesn't have it for us anymore. He needs to go somewhere else to get an opportunity to play. We don't want to stash him in Coachella, and they figure out some sort of trade or some sort of buyout and release at that point.
Yeah, and that was something I'm looking at here. I apologize. Again, they're doing sound check here at Climate Pledge Arena. The buyout numbers for him this year, the cap hit would be just under 2 million. You save about 4 million. You get to the better side of things with this contract now, because I believe in the last few years, if you had done it, you'd be eating more.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, the more I sit here and think about it as this is happening again in the back, I don't even know if you can hear it.
I can't hear it.
Um,
You're good.
Perfect. I think it is, in terms of like the bigger picture, it's ideal to have Matt Murray up here, because I don't know how much you've seen of him. I know one of our writers, Jay, did a piece on him. Victor Osterman has had a solid camp. I know, he ate a lot of time up in the ECHL. He had his debut game in the NHL this last season as well, in addition to Coco. If you're able to let the two future goaltenders, I don't know if Osterman necessarily, I believe it's more Coco, the future of your net, but get those guys more development, because he dominated the ECL at HL last year with Kansas City. I don't think he's going to get any better doing that again this year. So I just think, yeah, that Coachella Valley tandem should be Austin and Coco. Um, yeah, no, that's interesting. You mentioned Joey, and I'll go straight to that. Can he replicate, what he's done? I guess really from kind of late 2 seasons ago, Winter Classic on last year, you worry about breaking a guy, right? I've talked to RJ from Emerald City Hockey about this, especially the contract he signed, right? He's earning 5 million a year through the 29-30 season. So you've tied yourself to him. I know there's concern with signing a goalie long term, especially he's not old, and I'm not, he's 29. He's not on the younger side of things. Just I don't know. I don't know if I ever mentioned, like, had that conversation with you about signing a goalie for that much term at that age. But how do you view this year for Joey? I mean, if all things go well, he could, maybe see himself, going to the Olympics as well. I know the USA has got the goaltender, like they've got a pretty strong group there, but I don't know. Do you think Joey can replicate that? Do we see is he good enough to keep going as what was statistically a top five guy the last few years?
It's funny. Like, we could have a full conversation just about the term decisions that they made on certain contracts with this entire franchise. Um, yes, I think Joey can replicate it, and I think there's a couple of factors at play. One is the Olympics. I had a 20-minute sit down with Joey a couple weeks ago. He wants to earn his way onto that plane to Milan. Now, that means most likely either Jeremy Swayman's taking a step back, Thatcher Demko isn't Thatcher Demko, Dustin Wolf can't be what he was this last year, and Jake Ottinger maybe is having a down moment because barring some sort of barring an injury, Connor Hellebuck is on that plane and he's going to Milan and he's your starting goalie. But everything beyond that, you talked about the depth that the U.S. has. Like it's absurd the amount of depth the U.S. has. Canada would love to have that depth. But he's in that mix and he's in that conversation. Like when they had the Olympic orientation camp last month or in August, he there were four goalies invited: Swayman, Ottinger, Hellebuck, the court. So he's clearly in the conversation in USA Hockey's view of potentially being someone that they could throw on the plane and throw in a game if they needed to in Milan and give them the type of performance that they expect on that stage. So that right there is a huge, I think, enticement, motivation, whatever, for him to start the season strong and to um like you said, and to try and replicate, I guess, what he did the past 2 years. Another factor is yes, he's 29, but he hasn't played a lot. If you look at kind of his career path, he wasn't playing um he wasn't playing juniors. He wasn't playing on the national teams when he was U17, U18. He wasn't in the World Juniors conversation. He went and played college at Arizona State, so he's playing a college schedule. Like he's a little bit on the older side, but he's not a goalie that has a lot of wear and tear on him. He hasn't played a ton of games. It's not an equal comparison to like how Geno Smith went through this huge stretch in his career where he wasn't getting much playing time, and by the time he got another chance to start, he was in his 30s. But you kind of see the path that those guys go. He doesn't have multiple seasons of playing 50 games in net at this point. So I think that works overall in terms of can he keep this up for more than just a year and a half that we've really seen so far. And I'm wondering too how a better defensive structure, because we think that they're going to have a better defensive structure, will make things easier on him. His goals saved above average the last couple of years is kind of ridiculous when you look at it in comparison with some of the top guys. I mean, it is. It's among some of the top guys in the NHL. Um, he's had to work really hard a lot of nights. And a lot of that, especially last year, was due to a really poor defensive structure in front of him. If they are able to play better, more structured defensively, give up less high danger chances, give up less of the doorstep, wild, flailing saves that he's having to make, keep things as much as possible on the perimeter, then that bodes well for him having less stressful games in net. And maybe that means overall less wear and tear on him as the season goes on. So I do think that he's going to be able to a degree, match what he's done the last couple of years. If he's taking a significant jump of improvement beyond what we've seen the last two seasons, we're going to be talking about him in the Venza conversation. And at times it kind of came up a little bit here and there the last couple of years. But if his goals against is suddenly 2.3 and his save percentage is 945, 950, something ridiculous like that, like one, he might be getting on the plane to Milan, and two, we might be having that conversation about him being considered one of the best goalies in the league.
It's like you're reading my notes here. To segue to the defensive side of things, I know you and I have had this conversation. I've mentioned it on our Kraken show, but like looking at this blue line, right, and seeing 2, 4, 5 defensemen making over 4.5 mil a year, which is an interesting thing to say, and then also having 5 defensemen with left shots, at least listed per Puckpedia. How do you view the blue line? Because at least I had this conversation with Everett, with I'm not saying name recognition is important all the time, right? But like having I would say there's a good amount of talent on your blue line, and the numbers against were extremely poor. I don't know if how much blame you put on Bob Woods. I don't know how much blame you put on having different coaches in different years, right? But it was not good. None of that was good. Um, and yeah, we've heard so much with Lane Lambert about defensive structure. You brought it up. Um, Having some decent moniker of strong defense could, yeah, certainly help the case you're just talking about. How do you look at the blue line? Because I mean, maybe I'm a curmudgeon in this regard. I've kind of soured on Jamie Alexiak. I understand wanting to take care of your body, but so much is made of his big frame. I feel like you don't see that necessarily on a night to night basis. Vince Dunn makes a lot of money. He makes, the highest AAV on your team. He's dealt with injury. I know you can't control that. You just bring in Ryan Lindgren for 4.5 mil, which, he seems like a nice guy, tough, hard nosed, all that. But just adding a lot of money to a blue line that hasn't seen strong results. How do you look at the blue line, and do you expect them to shake something up? I mean, I'd have to imagine if things don't go well, Jamie Alexiak's moved at the deadline. I was surprised he wasn't moved last year. And other folks have brought up, hey, what about, Vince Dunn's contract is up in 2 years. Maybe, you know, given what he could return, he could be someone you look at as well. How do you view the blue line, at least for this season? I mean, if you want to look further ahead, be my guest.
Um, the blue line is like the rest of the roster. Like you have your top two pairs would be at best number two pairs for most teams. For most contending teams. It's the same with we talked about with the forwards. They have a bunch of second and third liners in their forward group, just like they have a bunch of second liners in their blue line group. Like you have four, maybe five, depending on pairings, legitimate second pair blue liners. Like on most teams, Adam Larson and Vince Dunn are second line. On most teams, Brandon Montour and Riker Evans are second line. I would throw Ryan Lindgren in there as probably a second liner, depending on who he's paired with. So it's again like this team to have success has to play with such structure and has to play with such depth and has to play with such contributions from that depth, and it goes from the forwards to the blue line. You have to get. I mean, again, to your point, like you can't control injury to a certain extent, but you have to get more out of Vince Dunn. You have to get more out of Brandon Montour in the sense of he got away last year from playing the kind of the structured style that worked in Florida, and he became more of a freelancer, which on that team he kind of had to become a freelancer a little bit, but it led to him being not as good defensively. Um, I give the guy a lot of credit because he gives a spark and energy to a room and to a team that needs it. But at times last year, I think he freelanced too much and it left them in some bad positions. Um, Riker Evans has to make a jump. Like you've now committed to him with his new deal for a couple of years. He needs to make a jump this year and show that he's more than just a third pair defender, and that he can play regularly up as a first pair, like he did when Dunn was out last year. Lindgren is a nice guy. He plays golf. Um, but he's kind of for now. He's just the guy. Now he's got a lot of experience. He's played on some good teams in New York, but he's kind of just a guy for the moment. Now, if you pair just a guy who's sound defensively with someone who's got some spark offensively like Montour, okay, that's an okay second pairing. Um, Larson and Dunn are going to play together again. I do worry if maybe Big Cat might be losing a step. He is getting up there in years. He's played a ton of games in his career. It's one of the great things about him is his durability and the fact that you can count on him to be out there every night, but he's played a lot. So I do worry, at this point of his career, if we start to see a little bit of regression in his game, and how does that affect Dunn if Dunn can't be as offensive as you need him to be because he is such an offensive threat out there at the blue line. And then the Jamie Alexiak question, like I'm like you, I'm stunned he's still on this roster. It made no sense to me why you would bring him back. It should have been a move that was made this offseason. Josh Mahura, while he's not size wise the same as Jamie Alexiak, I think is actually at times more willing to throw his body around and use it along the boards and along the wall. Um, I think he's a very sound defensive guy who's probably going to rotate in with that group at times during the season. So it's to me, Alexiak's kind of like he doesn't quite fit unless he changes his game a little bit, unless he's more willing now being in a contract year to go throw his body around more, use his physicality more. Maybe the structure of Lane Lambert's system fits him better defensively. Can he be a little bit more of a offensive impact when they get the puck into the offensive zone? It's a little bit of a wait and see with him, but I like you, like if there's going to be a lot of guys that are in this boat, but if they get to the deadline and they're out of it, Alexiak should absolutely be moved. You really should consider all offers on Vince Dunn because you might actually be able to get some real return on that. I don't know with what the way his contract is if someone's going to come after Adam Larson, but would you take calls on Riker Evans with, a year remaining I think anything is a potential possibility is a good phrase. Anything's a possibility with that group if you're when we get to the deadline if you're not in contention or you're not getting the type of performance out of them that you're expecting.
Yeah, and it's a good point. I mean, could add on to that, it's if things aren't how they are, how you want them to be, sorry. Ahead of the deadline, even after Thanksgiving, like how many pieces are you willing to tear down? Because you already are, I mentioned this to Tim, I feel like you're already going to have a good amount of cap space next year. Jaden Schwartz, Jordan Eberle, Ellie Tolvanen, Mason Marchman at least come off the books. There you start to look at the guys who have a year left. Um, Jared, I don't like saying that name. I've long been a big proponent of Jared McCann, but Jared McCann's got a couple of years on there. You've got some guys who are RFAs. Yeah, I mean, I'd certainly consider it. You mentioned Evans. I mean, yes, he's your first real big D-man prospect. Has he panned out like you thought he would? I don't know if you can say that. So, I mean, there are some questions there. Hey, if they play to the structure that it seems like this Lane Lambert era will bring, a lot of the conversation can change, which does lead me to the next point. Um, I don't know if it's the right way to put it, but is it refreshing to see the sort of intensity, structure, and work rate that Lane Lambert's brought? Because you've seen practices before with this roster, with this franchise. I don't think they've ever been like this, where they're consistently stopping play. Like I think Hack stopped one here and there. I don't know if Dan did it like that. I don't remember him as clearly. Um, but like even the bag skate the other day that I think only a few of us saw but it was brutal. Uh, Total brutal bag skate. I know Allison Lucan was saying she hadn't seen one similar to that in a while. I don't know. Just what are your thoughts from the early, moments we've seen of the Lane Lambert era and how, this, because again, I feel like just having him here, having a structure that maybe they didn't, and not to discredit Dan Bilesma, but that they didn't have with Dan Bilesma could really do wonders for a team that is lacking serious star power.
There's it kind of go you just hit on it with star power. It kind of goes back to the point of you have to have everybody contributing for this team to have success. And one of the ways that you make everyone feel that is through accountability from top to bottom. Like you put you put your quote unquote top line guys through a bag skate. You play, Freddie Gaudreau up and down the lines, and you put him on the second line one night as a wing, and you put him on the fourth line the next night as a center. You tell Matty Beniers like, hey, you're as great of a two-way center as you are. If we're not getting what we need, your ice time is going to drop. You tell Shane Wright, hey, you are giving us what we need. Instead of playing you 10 minutes a night, we're going to play you 16 minutes a night. Like I, th- again, this is all going to have to play out over time, but I think there's a level of accountability with what Lane has brought that's just a little bit different. You know, Hack wasn't the kind of he wasn't a shouter. He was the quiet, like, he was the quiet, like, dad is disappointed in you, kind of way of getting his point across for the most part. Dan tried this the tact of, hey, we're going to put your arm around you and we're going to try and develop you and we're trying to get you that way. And when he had to be a bad guy because he was like that, I don't think it worked quite as well. And the accountability wasn't quite the same. Or trying to hold guys accountable wasn't quite the same. What did we notice the first day of camp? Lane Lambert's voice. And it was striking how much he wanted to make sure that his voice was heard by his players. And he stopped drills, he stopped practice, he made sure his voice was heard when he was either praising or he was getting on someone for not doing something the way that he wanted. Um, I don't now, how is that going to translate in games? How is that going to translate when he's behind the bench? Is he going to be raving and screaming and really getting on guys in those moments? Or is he going to be the coach that does that in practice, does that in the dressing room, but on the bench he's calm and he um, talks to guys in the way not a I don't want to say it's not productive to yell because sometimes it is productive to yell, but like in a way that gets his point across without having to be demonstrative and be in their face kind of yelling. Um, it's such a difference from what we saw last year, but I don't know if it's going to be a difference that works. And again, because you don't have the knowledge that you're going to get 90 points from two guys on your top line. You know, you can't count on that. You might be able to count on 50. You might be able to count on in a good season 60. Um, but you don't have that knowledge that the way that he wants to coach is going to translate to success. You think it might, you hope it does, but you don't know for sure because your talent is so average across the board that you can't rely on having exceptional players being able to go out and implement that and know that you're going to get success out of it. When you have average guys, you need them to raise their level across the board in order to have success. How much does the system help that? How much does the coaching help that? That's kind of one of the great questions of how the season's going to go.
Yeah. No, I mean that's a good point. Um, and we touched about it, especially with Lambert's voice, but I think I'll shift. I was going to ask you about camp and what you'd seen from there. Would shift that because it feels like it was largely how the new guys were going to shift in and what you got from Berkeley Catton and Johnny Newman. Um, as someone who's, you've seen bad teams across a bunch of different sports. You've seen this team last year. Uh, I know it's not about us, right? Our job is not it's not a personal thing, but I know that fans do at least if they're going to be bad, make it entertaining, right? Let Berkeley Catton run loose. That Nani Newman's hammer the puck on the power play. What do you hope to see, whether it be, from a personal or entertainment standpoint, everyone to put it from this year's team? Because again, you're largely returning the same NHL group outside of a few swaps here and there. And you're still moving away from that expansion draft era while being in a, very full sports market, right? You're competing for attention. Um, as you know very well, it's not like you're going to have another neighbor in this building quite yet. So it seems like you've got some time for that, but you don't want to be forgotten, right? You don't want to be like, oh, who cares?
Yeah,
What do you hope
yeah.
to see this year?
There's a term. It's kind of a crass term, but it's either bleep or get off the pot. And it's like they need to figure out which of those things they're doing this year. Are they going to be good enough that they are in contention and they have and then that allows them to make moves to supplement and improve the roster as you get closer to the deadline? Or are they, is this the first year of what we then look back on as a rebuild? And you play Berkeley Catton a ton, and you play Yanni Newman a ton, and you let the kids get their ice time. You play Shane a ton, you play Maddie a ton, you play Capo a ton when he gets back. You you make that switch and you start moving out the contracts that need to get moved out. The guys who are on their last year, the guys who might have 2 years left that you don't see a path for them helping you down the road. And you say, and you take your fan base and you say, hey, we're going to play the kids. We get to the US Thanksgiving or we get to Christmas or whatever, and they're out of it. You say, hey, we're going to play the kids. We're going to make this shift. We're going to move some veterans out. We're officially transitioning from our expansion era into our next chapter. And here's what it's look like. Here's what it looks like. It's going to suck, but please stay with us because we think in a couple of years these kids are going to really pop. Maybe we get a couple more high draft picks. Maybe we win the lottery and get Gavin McKenna. And you see the possibilities 2 to 3 years from now of them being a true, power. That's one path. The other path is, okay, they play better than we're expecting. They're more disciplined. They're more structured. They're having that success throughout the lineup. It looks like 22, 23 again to a certain extent. And we're talking when we get to, say, the Olympic break of like, okay, what are the moves they're going to make coming out of the break to enhance this roster? Because this is a team that's on the cusp of potentially getting a playoff berth. You hope that you're in one of those two camps. You really do. It's the in between, which is where I'm worried that they're going to be, that does nothing. Because if you're mediocre and you're not showing that you have a plan moving forward, then you don't draw the interest that you need to. You don't have the you don't have the you don't have the general sports fan going, oh, I want to go watch a team that's, 6 points out of a wild card spot and 2 games under 500 in late January. Like that's not going to draw your interest. And again, in a crowded sports market where you have a lot of stuff going on that can draw attention away. So if you're in that position, that's bad. If you're in the position of we're breaking it down, we're playing the kids, we're trying to get a high draft pick, that's not as bad. It's not great because obviously you want to try and win, but still it's not as bad as being mediocre in the middle. And then obviously your goal is to be one of those teams that we're talking about at the Olympic break that's in contention. Um, I I worry that it's going to be that mushy middle is where they end up, where they don't know what their direction should be. And that is bad for a franchise in year 5 that is still searching for what its identity and what its direction should be and needs to start transitioning away from that inaugural season expansion group and start evolving moving forward. And I don't know if the way this season will play out will allow that to happen. If they have success, then yeah, you're evolving in that way to being back into being talked about as a playoff team, and you'll deal with the expiring contracts and all that later on because you're in the playoff conversation. Or you're the other way and it's breaking it down and starting the rebuild process. The middle is where it will suck, and I'm worried that's where they'll end up being.
Just, you know, maybe for better or worse, as our friend, I'm sure you get a lot of it too, but as our friend Ryan Divish would say, just not looking at his replies, I look, I see what people are saying. I try to keep some, to an extent, right? You're not looking at like the Facebook comments. That's like hell on earth.
Yes.
Um, but I think it like what you're talking about with the two paths is exactly what fans want. They're like, hey, I'm fine if you want to suck and play the kids, but then I know we're rebuilding. It feels like, I made this comparison with Everett, with the Mariners in what, 18, 19. You committed to it. You said, we're going to stop trying to add patchwork pieces here and there and not going for the big fish, Robinson Cano, of course. Um, you pick a direction, right? And yeah, sure. If I would love to come on here in a few months and say we were wrong and, they're doing all this stuff and they're actually, gunning for a spot in the playoffs or they're in one. Um, but I would like to see some direction. I think that's what a lot of the fan base wants. They want to know what the hell's going on. Because if it's just another year like last two, where you're kind of in it, you got an outside shot, and aging guys are aging, and folks want that idea. So, all
And it's
right,
hard
well
because
that,
you have season ticket holders who are coming up on their 5-year renewals this
yep.
year. And are they going to be willing to sign up for, if you rebuild, if you tear it down, are they going to be willing to sign up for 2 more years of probably bad hockey in the hopes that when you get to the 27-28 season, you're kind of like maybe where um Anaheim is, or maybe even better
Mm,
off for them, like where Utah is this year, where you have some young pieces that's really become established as your core, and you've supplemented some veterans around that, and you're ready to see if you can make that jump into being a true contender in the Western Conference. I don't know. I don't know because you're still so young in the marketplace and you didn't grab the marketplace in the same way that Vegas did as an expansion franchise. I don't know if you can risk that. Um, you should not fear risking it, but I also understand from a front office perspective why that's a very dangerous and risky move to make when you have things like your season ticket, renewals coming up and all those other aspects that play into the that are so heavily involved in the finances of the NHL versus the way it is in other sports.
as Dylan from Emerald City Hockey would say, it is a results driven business. You can't
Yes.
just have, as much as I would love to just have fun. That's not how reality works.
Yep. Exactly.
With the defensive side of things, I am curious about this. Like, Joey Daccord had a great year, right? It's largely been since December of 2 seasons ago, leading into the Winter Classic. The Winter Classic is the big exclamation point, and then he plays pretty well the rest of that year and has a good season last year. He's been rewarded with a contract extension. What does he look like this year? This is one of the topics I talked about with Tim. We'll talk about the three goalies. I guess what do you expect from Joey this year? Because he'll undoubtedly shoulder the majority of the game load, knock on wood, God forbid something happens. And if he plays well, there is a injury or someone sees a drop in form on the Team USA roster, he could find himself at the Olympics, right? Um, Jade, I know you saw a lot of it last year. We saw his shenanigans throughout the year. I know Miracle you did too, but we'll go with Jade first since you started the last one. What are you expecting from Joey this year? And that could or could not include your thought on if he'll actually get a goalie goal this season or not.
I am expecting probably a pretty similar year to last year. I know that he puts in a lot of work in the off season. And like it, I feel like skaters have more of that like kind of regression after having a really good year. Not every time, obviously, but like sometimes they do tend to have a little bit of regression. I feel like you don't see that as frequently with goalies. So I'm expecting a pretty similar year. I don't know. I would really like to see him play less so that the other goalies can play a little bit more consistently and not sit on the bench for the better part of the season. Um, and that's not anything against seeing Joey in the net. Obviously, that's not like a dig on him, but I would like to see a little bit more consistency with rotating through the goalies, especially if they're going to be carrying three goalies through the season. I know that we don't know the answer to that right now, but they are starting the season with three goalies. And so I'm hoping to see a little bit more rotation with the goalies, not just like you're playing good, you have to go carry the entire workload, all of it, every game, basically. I think that that's not fair. I think that that's a little bit of an unrealistic expectation. And, I know that there have been goaltending struggles with the Kraken pretty consistently, but that also I feel like can change if you're playing a goalie a little bit more, giving them more of a chance to prove themselves. So that's kind of my opinion. That kind of went off topic. It was on topic, but like a little tangenty. And I obviously hope that he gets a goalie goal, but I hope that he does it at home so that I can witness it with my eyeballs.
Yeah, he's getting the goalie goal. He has to. I'm gonna be mad if it doesn't happen for him. If they screw his chances up again. He's gonna get it. But I agree. I think I don't have any worries about Joey. I think he's the least of our worries, like pretty much at all times. I think he's gonna have a great season, just like he did last year. Yeah, Jade pretty much said everything I was gonna say. I really hope that if we're gonna carry three or even two, that they split it up a little more. They overworked the hell out of him towards the end of the season, and it was scary because if he gets hurt, then what? I mean, Phil rode the bench the whole season, so like you can't just switch him that quick and expect him to be able to turn on and, you know, show up out of nowhere. So I'm hoping with the three of them that there's more consistency in not just one person taking the whole load. Not that I think he would have problems with it, but
I think it's unfair to expect
yeah,
that of him. As a fan, as a team, I feel like that's just
he doesn't seem to mind. He seems okay with it, which
yeah.
is great because, like, I mean, I would too if I could play, let me play. But it's got to be freaking exhausting.
Yeah, and it's just I don't it's one of those things that it just seems you said it about, expect if he gets injured and then you expect somebody that's been sitting on the bench for the past 10 games to come in and play out of their minds. That's just so unrealistic. And yeah,
For everybody.
there needs to be a better balance this year. That's I guess goaltending as a whole, not even just Joey, but also for his sake, there just needs to be a better balance this season.
Hopefully,
I
with
think
three, we'll find that. Like, it's not just going to be two of you sit and watch Joey go play. Like,
Yeah.
I don't, that would suck.
I think the biggest thing that forces them to use the three goalies is the condensed schedule with
Hmm.
the Olympics. Um, and yeah, no, I know talking to Phil, Philip, ew, I just saw a Chat GPT commercial. Explode yourself immediately. Um, I did not know they advertised. Anyway,
That's gross.
um, Phil has talked at length at times about, having not necessarily a routine, but finding a rhythm in terms of goaltending, coming out cold and yeah, after long stretches, which they've done with him since Joey's have found this level of form isn't necessarily great. I don't imagine it'll be too kind to Matt Murray either. You're at the other end of your career, um, expecting you to come in fresh, when you're trying to maintain your body at this time of your career isn't ideal. Yeah, and further with the Olympic year, Phil's Phil's going to be playing in Milano. Like that's already been decided.
Yep.
So I'm sure he wants to get a good amount of games in, feel like he's ready for that stage. Because as Tim and I talked about, and I've talked about with Phil, there isn't exactly a goalie that takes his spot. Not right now, and there's certainly not one that's necessarily up and coming at this current point in time. So it, for his sake, he's going to want to get in a decent amount of games. I can check the schedule here, but there's this first road trip that they go on that's somewhat challenging. So at some point, and I'll talk about it with Everett. We'll get to our segment with Everett, but there is a stretch on this road trip, this upcoming road trip. Oh, I got the error 404 message. No.
I'm going to interject super quick about the Olympics thing before I completely, that's so mean. Before I completely lose my train of thought that despite him not playing last year a whole lot, he went into the men's world championships. I know that that's not something that many people care about, but it's one of those things that I care about. I love watching worlds. I think it's so much fun. And then he went and played out of his mind for Germany. Like he did pretty well. So I think that I hope that they look at that and take that into consideration and then kind of let him get another chance to come out of the slump that he's been in. And there was that mystery injury last season too that I know just didn't help anything. So that's my take on the Olympic stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, and we all, I think we, no, we didn't exist when they were doing the Four Nations. Um,
We were
Not this
not
iteration, at
around.
least. Um, yeah, playing for your country obviously means a different thing. It's a different level. But yeah, no, this first road trip, right? Because they play Anaheim, they play Las Vegas, Hon Wee Wee. Don't know why they're French. And then this road trip features, basically the three big Canada teams. Um, no, sorry, four big Canada teams. Then you go and play the Flyers and the Caps in an early back-to-back. Um,
Which we've historically done great with, by the way.
mhm,
Super good.
very good. Yeah, Montreal on the 14th, Ottawa on the 16th, Toronto the 18th, Philly, Washington, other Washington 20th, 21st, and then Winnipeg on the 23rd before you come back and start a 5-game homestand. So, like, there's plenty of opportunity to honestly get a look at all three of the goalies throughout that road trip. I don't know if that's how they'll manage it. I know Everett and Tim had thoughts on that. Everett talked a lot about starting hot. With the injuries they've got, I feel like that becomes a lot more difficult, and especially with that road trip. So, oh, my feelings on Joey. I don't know. The point was made is, and I was a little bit worried about, how much of a workload he's had the last season and a half. The point is made, he hasn't played a ton at the NHL level until he's been at Kraken. So there isn't necessarily that wear and tear for a guy who is, I'm not calling him Unk necessarily, but
Old.
for a guy who is 29, he doesn't necessarily have the wear and tear, the pucks, dealt with that a guy who, maybe has been playing at the NHL level consistently for a few years has. Granted, he has still been playing in AHL hockey. I'm not saying he hasn't just been sitting around like doing nothing, but yeah, that point was made, which is fair. So the goalie situation, we've already then talked about the three goalie situation, um, which I think not Kraken necessarily, but within the organization. I think this is best case scenario at the AHL level because then you get to see your two, young goalies in Victor Ostman and primarily Nike Coco handle things at the Firebirds level. If Matt Murray's down there, he potentially eats up some of one of those guys' minutes. You're
Yeah.
more looking at Coco here. But I'm like, oh, yay. One of you doesn't have to go and sit in ECHL Kansas City, which I've been told you can't call it the East Coast League anymore. You have to call it just the ECHL, which I find fascinating. Um, but one of them doesn't have to sit with the Mavericks in Kansas City and just dominate everybody like Ostman did. So that is that. I am curious. I know we've talked previously in another episode about the off-season additions. I want to go back to something. I know it's a few preseason games. I know the full lineup hasn't been there. They've been playing with children. Um, Jade had some thoughts in the last preseason game about Mason Marchment. Um, I will let Jade say them in video form for those who have not read them in written form.
Man,
Um, just your thoughts. Well, I know some people can't read. I can't read. I don't know what your shirt says. I don't know what Miracle's shirt says.
my shirt is
Reading
Ice
hard.
Cube.
All I know is I have a shirt for bald people. See,
It's
deal with it.
not just hair.
Hold on. I'm
I've dealt
actually
with.
gonna pull that article up
I'm
really
going to
quick.
talk about bald people while you do that. I've dealt with bullying my entire life because I've had this hair shit. So no, it's not just hair. Um, but yeah, no, this will just be what you've seen from Mason, and you can take it to the other new guys as well with Gaudreau, Lindgren. We'll talk about the rookies. I more mean the NHL guys that you've brought in this offseason. Um,
Yeah.
you know, Jade had some thoughts on Mason Marchman and what
There it is.
she's seen or not necessarily seen from him in the preseason. That spurs this topic around the offseason additions. Jade first, then we'll go over To Miracle, of course. Not like
So
there's anybody else in the room here.
the exact wording that I used so that you don't have to go find the article and then read it is for a physical forward that was expected to bring energy. Off-season acquisition Mason Marchment has been pretty quiet so far this preseason. Of course, he's only dressed for 3 games, but I do hope that changes once the preseason is over. I apparently can't read either. Here's to giving Mush some grace as he integrates into a new team, especially considering that he's now playing without someone who he seemed to have good chemistry with in Chandler Stevenson, but obviously an eye will be kept on him going forward. So with that being said, I wasn't super, super impressed with him in the preseason. And I know preseason hockey is preseason hockey. It's not always pretty. It's not always great. It's not always exactly how you're going to see a team lineup play whatever throughout the rest of the season. But I was expecting a little bit more from him in the preseason in general. And it feels mean to judge a player so quickly. It feels a little bit silly, but I am hesitant doesn't really feel accurate, but like I am kind of side-eyeing a little bit just because I don't know. I don't really know why. I don't know what it is. Just that's not my favorite thing so far. And I know that he's a fan favorite. I know that everybody loves him. And I can feel Miracle staring at me through the computer, even though she's like this big on my screen.
I didn't say anything.
But I am hoping that that changes. I'm hoping that I am proved wrong for sure. That's it.
My
Yeah.
um, I don't know. Like he only played 3 games, so I'm not super worried yet. And again, we are figuring there's so many new moving parts for everything that just hurts my brain thinking about all the new shit that they've thrown on the guys that have been here since, day one. Like, hey, another new coach, whole new roster, new pairings, new lines. Here you go. Figure it out in the however many preseason games we have. Good luck. So I don't know. It's not something that I'm like super worried about. Give me 2 weeks, and if it still is the same, maybe, maybe it's a problem. But I think
That's
for right now, they're still figuring shit out. And I do have a big bias because I love Mush and anything he does. I'm like, whatever, he's fine. He's great. He's gonna bring it. He's gonna spark the whole team, and it's gonna be great. But as of now, I'm not really like, oh shit. Where is the Mush that we saw in Dallas? Because he's only been here not even like 3 games or whatever. So.
that's a lot of why I'm not trying to pass too much judgment too early, but it is just one of those things that I kind of saw and I was like, it could have been better starting out. But again, this is all new stuff. I think I wrote about preseason injuries, and I think that in that article, I don't think I swore, but I am pretty sure I said something about throwing every single possible line into a blender and seeing what sticks, and because I didn't want to say throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks in a article. But that obviously happens. That happened with the Kraken. That happens with every team. You don't go into the season knowing for sure what all the lines are going to be for the rest of the year. So I'm trying to not pass too much judgment, but to my eyeballs, I am a little bit like, unsure.
Yeah, I think largely with Marchman, it's a good point. He hasn't played a ton. He's also, one guy he was developing chemistry with was Chandler Stevenson. Chandler's been out for a little bit, so I was like, yeah, I'm gonna hold it. Just with the preseason lines, because people are like, oh, that line doesn't look good. I'm like, yeah, he's playing with 2 prospects. Like, I'm not worried about
Mm.
it. Like, we'll that was the biggest thing with some of the comments I saw on our stuff this preseason. Largely when the team didn't do well, I was like, oh, I'm so worried about this. I was like, you realize this is half of the roster. A handful of these guys will play at the NHL this year. The rest of them are still developing. Like, and that's only within one of the halves. I'm like, when yeah, a guy like Marchman isn't playing, a guy like Lindgren isn't playing. In those games, I was like, I don't give a fuck. Like, this is not the group that's gonna be together on opening night. It's not. even opening night will not be the group that hopefully you get for the entirety of the season,
Yeah,
right?
because 3/4 of them are injured. So
Like you, at least I know this isn't totally accurate, but at least on Puckpedia it says for your day-to-day guys, it's got Vince, Jared, Brandon, Chandler. That sounds like I'm talking about a frat house.
sure does.
Yeah.
McCann,
My
Montour,
God.
Stevenson. And then you've got
The worst
Taco
collection of
on,
white boy names ever.
yeah. And then we get to some more unique stuff with Capo and Riker. A little different. Um, being out for a decent amount of time. Uh, yeah, that's not opening night will not at all be what we see for the majority of the season. Not ideally, at least. Um, so on the other guys, Goudreau's versatility, I'm sure we'll see it throughout the course of the season. Like they've played him at center. I'm sure they'll play him at wing at times. He's talked about that versatility. Ryan Lindgren, Ryan Lindgren is Ryan Lindgren. You know what you're getting with him. But,
I think that he is going to be useful they keep talking about wanting to find the identity of the team and um we're going to have a new identity this season and this, that, and the other thing. And I think that I'm not saying that this is the best thing ever, but I think that Lindgren is going to be a key piece in that identity that they allegedly want to have. I think.
Yeah, well, and that's you want to talk about that. This is something that Everett and I talked about. Everett Fitzhugh of the Seattle Kraken Audio Network. Um, about him and Goudreau. They've both been praised as locker room guys. We talked about this, in the previous episode. So I guess now is a perfect time, as you've served this up to me on a platter, to throw it to our segment with Everett. This was, I think Jade's in the back. I think you both might be in the background of this at
We were
one
both
point
there, yeah.
earlier in the season. Yeah, so there you go.
Oh, from the Kraken Community Iceplex, Everett Fitzhugh, good friend.
Hi, Mom.
Of CSS Kraken Audio Network.
Yep.
Everett, we're here today at the Iceplex as training camp's going on.
We are, yeah.
To do our part of this whole CSS Kraken season preview. First of all, I know a lot of folks have already talked about it. You've talked about it with our friend Mike Benton.
Yeah.
About the moves made this offseason. Just first of all, generally your thoughts, Mason Marchment, Ryan Lindgren. Matt Murray's not out here yet. I imagine he's playing tonight in Vancouver, but I don't know. Just your thoughts on the offseason, the moves that the NHL team made.
I thought that they were good moves. The big question going into the offseason was, are they going to address the offensive side of the puck? And while I do think that maybe there could have been a bigger move made there, I do like adding Marchment and Lindgren and Gaudreau, because you add some sandpaper to that lineup. You add a couple of guys in Marchment who's not afraid to go to the net. He's not afraid to mix things up. I mean, he provides a little bit of that spark I think this team's been missing. Ryan Lindgren, you talk to him, he's all business, right? He means business. He's a tough, solid defensive defenseman. Freddie Gaudreau, I loved his comments. I think it was last week on the first days of camp. We all interviewed him, and he said that he loves that up and down part of being in the lineup. He's on the third line today, second line tomorrow. He could be a fourth line guy. He loves that uncertainty. He loves that ability that he has to be a floater, and I think that's going to really benefit this team down the road.
I like that you bring up Gaudreau, because I didn't forget that part. But I thought one of the big things, at least when they first signed here, was with Gaudreau and Lindgren. Hear about how they're locker room guys, right? They're culture guys, and obviously, as you know very well, most of this leadership group has been here since day one, right? But also, I don't think it's out of pocket's the right way to put it. Things haven't gone the way they've wanted three out of the 4 years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so maybe you do want to start building towards a different culture or something like that, because eventually the expansion draft era will be out the window. We're already starting to move that way. Just, I don't know, how big do you think that can be for guys like Gaudreau, Lindgren to kind of start, guys who have been in the playoffs, know what that's like, been on winning teams, to set a new foundation, set a new culture, bring something different.
I think it's big. And listen, this isn't me trying to push. I'm not saying that McCann and Eberle and Schwartz and all those guys, that core, we're not saying that they're not good. Obviously, they're still good. Obviously, they're still good leaders. But I think we're now going into that second chapter of Kraken hockey, right? You're seeing a lot more of the draft picks that this team has made come in. You look at Brandon Montour, Chandler Stevenson. Those guys are now wanting to have a bigger voice in that locker room. You're right. Like it's a fact. At a certain point, that expansion era, that expansion draft roster, they're going to move on, retire, other teams, whatever. And now you need to you're going to have a different core. You're going to have different leaders. And I think when you bring in the Gaudreaus of the world, you bring in the Montours and the Stevensons, and you have guys who potentially could be here for quite some time, learning from Eberle and Schwartz and McCann and Alexiak and Larson and all those guys who've been here since day one. I think it makes that transition, the inevitable transition, a little bit easier. And I think it helps establish, I think, some solid foundational principles that, hey, we started X with these guys, and now we're going to roll this on to the newcomers coming in.
Yeah, no, that's great, especially when you talk about with the different defensemen. I was talking to Ty Nelson a few days ago, and I asked him, I was like, I don't know, who do you gravitate towards during these camps that he's been in? And he mentioned those guys and how they're always checking in on him, seeing what he wants, seeing what he needs.
Well, and again, too, like, you look at in the position of on the defensive side, Dunn's won a cup. Yeah, Alexiak's been to a cup. Yeah. Up front, Montour's won a cup. Has been to back-to-back finals. So there's a lot of people on that blue line that you can lean on. Lindgren has played in, the media craziness that is New York City. You know what I mean? And he's had to deal with all the expectations, and I thought has had a really good career through all of that. So there are a lot of really good players offensively, defensively on this team off the ice that a lot of these young guys can learn from and look at.
Yeah. No, well, you talk about kind of instilling the foundational principles. And I think what you said, to reference our Seattle Mariners.
Oh, of course.
54%. And obviously,
are we past that?
They have to.
Hey, congrats, Mariners. 24 years. Y'all deserve it. This city deserves it. Congratulations. Well done. By the way, I loved watching you celebrate in there.
Celebrate.
You still smell like Coors Light and cigars. So,
lanyard?
Oh, that smells like victory. That lanyard smells like victory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, one of the things, Dan Wilson's talked about is, the whole organization seems to be in sync. Yeah. With how they're developing, stuff like that. Yeah. So that's what I think when you talk about foundational principles that runs throughout, the organization. Yeah. One last piece on the offseason, how big was it to get Kaapo Kakko back? I know it's kind of like a bridge deal, right? Because, it sets them up to get another payday in, 3 or 4 years. Yep. But you just saw how well he fit in here. He gave the Kraken something they really haven't had, right? With a forward with size. Which, not to downplay the forwards here, but again, they're not exactly the biggest guys. How well Matty Beniers' offense seemed to take off after he came here. Obviously you talk about Ryan Lindgren and where he was coming from with the media. Obviously it's a change here with him and Kaapo. Just how big was it, to get him here and lock him up for a few more years?
It was massive because, listen, it didn't work out for Kakko in New York, but he's a first-round pick. He's a first-round draft pick. And you got him for, I'm not going to say nothing because Will Borgen was a fantastic player, but you got him for a very, very, what I would say, a low price, right? Yep. And then you sign him to a very team-friendly deal. You're right, it's only 4 years. But what he did in that, 45-game, 50-game sample size, I saw enough to know that he's going to be a leader and an anchor in that top six for minimally the next 4 years. But I think if he continues to produce, if he gets back to the Capo Caco that the Rangers drafted and gets back to that player, I mean, this is going to be a foundational player. I mean, you're going to put Capo Caco in the same conversation of a Shane Wright, of a Matty Beniers.
Yeah, he's still,
you know what I mean?
24?
Like 24, yeah. So he's still young. So I do think that, you know, the ceiling for him is so high. And he likes playing here. It's fun listening to him and Tolvanen and Coco and Newman speak Finnish together. And, you know, I think we're the Dallas Stars, because Dallas, they've got all of half of Team Finland plays for Dallas and the other half's in Florida. And then we got a few guys up here. So, kind of pockets of Finns.
The different Finn hubs.
He's fitting in here with the team. The guys love him. He plays well. You know, you're hoping that his injury isn't too bad. You know, he got slashed on the wrist the other day. You know, so we'll wait and see what coaches say. Hopefully, again, if he is out, it's day to day, you know, and nothing more than that. But I think it was so important. That was the biggest piece. That was the biggest roster priority for me this past summer, was getting him to an extension. And if I can go a little further, I look at a guy like Mason Marchment, who's going into his last year of his contract.
Yeah.
I could see Mason Marchment being in that same situation. He comes here, he puts up good numbers, he likes being here. I could see the priority next season going to, hey, we got to get Marchment lined up, in addition to also signing Connor McDavid.
Oh, yeah. not making a move for off?
Hey, listen. You want to get a generational talent? You want to get a bona fide, unquestioned top line centerman in this, or it's going to cost you.
There it is.
There he is, right?
That'd be your, no, for sure.
And he turned down the, 8 by whatever. So from the Wild that gave him that contract. So maybe it's a matter of no deal's going to get it done. Maybe he doesn't want to be in Minnesota. Maybe he wants to be somewhere else, or maybe he wants shorter term. You're starting to see a lot of these NHL guys go the NBA route. Like, rather than going 8 by 8, I'll go 4 by 8. You can still pay me $8 million.
All the money. I don't necessarily want.
You know, it used to be, I want the term. I want to build a house and unpack all my boxes. But now these guys are trying to maximize their earning potential. They're trying to maximize their revenue over the course of, you know, what averages out to be a 5 to 7 year career.
Yeah.
And they want to make as much as possible.
Yeah. Well, that's fair. To go to camp here, you know, all these early mornings here at the Iceplex. I know it feels maybe like, you know, gritting and grinding a little bit until we get to the actual games, but, you know, at least for you, top takeaways from camp. Obviously, so much attention on Berkeley Cat.
Yeah.
We've seen some of the new guys, like you mentioned, with Marchman and Lindgren, and you know, Matt Murray is an NHL level goaltender here. Again, probably playing tonight. I will ask you about the goalies in a minute.
For sure.
I don't know what sticks out to you at camp. Again, we've seen so much of it. Feels like we've just been drilled into our heads. But I don't know who sticks out. What stuck out to you? I'm sure we'll talk about Lane Lambert, because it does feel different.
I was going to say that's where it starts for me. Is Lane, the coaching, the attention to detail. I call it the GAS meter, the give a bleep meter.
Oh, yeah.
The gas meter is high with him. You know, last week in practice, they were running drills, and he was blowing the plate dead because they started offside. Or, you know, you lost the puck. Rather than going to get that puck that's next to you, no, there's one puck in the game. Go get the pass that you missed and keep on going. So that accountability is there. That attention to detail is there. That structure is there, and I can tell the guys are really responding to it. I also think that, you know, this is a big camp for me for a lot of those early second and third round picks. Your Goyets, your Carson Raykops, your Nelsons, your Jagger Ferguses, right? Like, those are the guys that you're looking to be pieces on this NHL lineup. And I think by and large, for the most part, I've been impressed by a lot of the kids. I thought Morrison had a really good game, and Edmondson the other night. Winterton looks really good as well in that game. Tyson Jugnoth, I mean, he had one of the best games, I thought, of preseason. So I've been very surprised, and not in a bad way, pleasantly surprised. At the growth and the maturation and the development of a lot of these mid-round, second, third, fourth round guys that are now graduating junior hockey. They spent last year in the American League. All right, let's see what you can do now. For the most part, I've really liked watching those guys develop.
Yeah, no, that's a good point because, I mean, what was it? It was after the inaugural season sell-off. You get all these picks. Last year with Yanni and Oliver Bjorkstrand and Brandon Tanev going out.
We now have 2 more first-round picks because of that.
Yep, you get the other picks, and it's just like, I know you've heard it the last few years. The Kraken have all these picks, or they've got this prospect pool that's interesting. That isn't as big as some of the other prospect pools, of course, but, and some of those guys like Raykop, who dominate the OHL, Jagger Fergus, who is so big in the WHL. It's like, okay, what's the next step? And who knows? I mean, we saw it last season. Anything can happen with call-ups. Right? I mean, I don't know if I expected to see Yanni Newman.
No.
In the beginning of the year.
I didn't either.
Right?
But you know what? That opens up the door this year for a Ty Nelson. I thought he looks really good. Tyson Jugnoth, depending on what happens with him. You know who I thought has been a really good dark horse this camp, and he might not be the flashiest guy, but Oscar Molgar.
Yes.
His last couple of games have been very strong. And he, I would put him in that top 5 for first call-ups of the season. Just, if he continues, it wouldn't surprise me. Just the way that he's approached this camp, his drills, his practices, the games that he's played, I thought Molgard looked really good so far.
He does seem like a guy who, I don't know, because guys can evolve, right, and can take jumps, but he does seem like a guy who could easily be a guy that fits in the middle, the bottom 6 at an NHL level for a good chunk of years.
Well, and we
talk about very stout.
We talk about Gaudreau, right? Freddie Gaudreau, he's made a habit and a living of being a very malleable player, right? You want me on your 4th line? Great. You want me on your 2nd line? All right, sounds good. Sick, can't wait. You know what I mean? Like, those type of players, I think, are so important and so valuable to an organization.
Yeah, no, that's a great shout, because he's a guy that we've even had some people. I understand, it was the back-to-back, but someone was like, I don't see Molgard in the lineup. I really want to see him. And I was like, I'm sure he'll play tomorrow, which he did. But it's a good point. With Lane, to go back to that, maybe a couple times with Hack.
Yeah.
I don't know if we had seen that, though, to this level where, what did he say the other day? He was encouraging, not yelling. I mean, just the intensity's up every day. It just does seem like they're going to set a strong foundation. So many times we've talked to guys in the scrum, or Lane's talked about it, where it's, it's the hardest training camp, or they're really pushing them. So,
well, and listen, too, I think for a lot of people are already writing the Kraken off. And, I don't think this team is going to be as poor as everyone says this team's going to be. And honestly, I think a lot can go in the Kraken's favor. You have a very condensed schedule. We're already seeing teams going down with injuries. Seattle also has got some injuries as well. But I remember in the last year of the Dave Hackstall era, there were a lot of times when, the Kraken didn't score as many goals as they would have liked. But you always heard, man, you knew you played the Kraken tonight. This team's going to outwork you.
I think Gaudreau said that.
He said you knew you were going to be in one when you played the Kraken. And I think that's going to be a huge piece for this team. If Seattle can play that type of hard, grinding hockey, I say it on the air all the time, it doesn't have to be sexy. You only have to win by 1. And if this team can be comfortable being a 3-2 hockey team, a 2-1, you don't need to be a 5-4 team. You don't need to be a 4-3 team. You'd like to be. You'd like to score more goals. But if you can consistently win games, 2-1, 2-0, 3-2, 4-3, 4-2 with an empty net, right?
Yeah.
If you can keep those games and you can win the defensive battle and you can win the hustle and compete battle, this team's going to win more games than a lot of people have given them credit for.
Yeah, no, that's great. I was going to ask you exactly that. It was like, do you think that Lane's defensive structure, seeing what Joey Decourt does, if he's able to have anything resembling what he did last year, and it just, I don't know, it seems like you've got too many quality defensemen on your NHL roster to be as bad as they were defensively.
The personnel was never the problem.
Yeah.
The defensive personnel wasn't the issue. I think it was just that team defensive commitment. And listen, for whatever reason, who knows? Obviously the Kraken made a coaching change, and I'm not going to sit here and put all of this squarely on the shoulders of Dan Bilesma. That wouldn't be fair. I mean, because at the end of the day, there's 23 guys out there playing, and the coach can only do so much. So, but whatever it was, right? The personnel was never the issue, and I think now you've got the personnel coupled with a defensive-minded coach. This is going to be a top 12 defensive team in the league. And you look at 2 years ago, last year, Dave Axtell, the Seattle Kraken were the only team in the top 10 in defense. They were 9th in goals against. The only team in the top 10 in defense to not make the playoffs with essentially the same personnel. And now you've added Montour, you've added Lindgren. You've only gotten better.
Yeah. That was a good point. I remember that season. It was so often. It was like you didn't give up a lot, but you also didn't score as much.
You didn't get a lot either.
So, yeah, goodness. So I guess for you, last few ones for you. Yeah. What are you looking forward to most with this team? We've kind of touched on it with the defense. You want to see things change. You've mentioned some of the potential call-ups. What are you hoping to see, from our vantage point up on the bridge this upcoming season with this team?
I think two things. Number one, they have to have a good start. You can't stumble out the gate. You got 2 at home, and then you're going to Eastern Canada for 6, and you pick up Winnipeg on the way back, right? You got a 12-day road trip right off the back. Sorry, Shell. I love you. Tell my wife and my son sorry in advance. But no, this team has to come back from that 6-game road trip, your first 8 games of the year. You can't be 4-4. 5-3. 5, 2-2, whatever it is, right? Whatever, right? You have to come back and you have to play well. So I think a strong start's good, but also too, I think leaning into that team structure, defensive philosophy. It's going to be a grind of the season. You got 14 back-to-backs. Can the Kraken win some of those back-to-backs this year? 0-11 last year. They got to turn that around. But it's going to be a grind of the season. Staying healthy, that's going to be huge. We've already seen Stevenson, Marchment, McCann, now Capo.
Montour's got the
Versa. Someone else, I'm sure, has got the sniffles back there. You're already starting to see some guys go down. You're seeing around the NHL other guys, look at Zach Hyman is out till November in Edmonton. Tkachuk and now Barkov are out for the defending Cup champions until, Tkachuk's out till December. Barkov may be out the whole year. So you're already starting to see guys dropping like flies, and it's only going to get worse as these games start to mean more and to mean something.
Especially with this schedule.
With this schedule, especially being a West Coast team. The schedule's already a bear as it is. I think we're going to see a lot more optional practices. We're going to see a lot more maintenance days, a lot more days off because you need it, right? So just because, I'll pick a player, just because Jared McCann doesn't practice today doesn't mean he's hurt. But hey, the Kraken have got 5 games in the next 8 days. I can't have Jared McCann skating in practice every other day. So just watch out for those kind of things. Health is going to be big for this team this year.
And that brings up the call-ups too. Guys, there will probably be a good likelihood that guys are going to get that shot to be
I think we're going to see some debuts this year. I think there's going to be some guys who get some rookie laps. You see the Calgary Hitmen in the Western Hockey League last week. They were in Lethbridge.
They had
a 14-player rookie lap. Hey. They had a 14-player rookie lap.
Crazy.
So that was awesome.
It basically had a whole skate.
Exactly. Optional practice.
My last 2 for you, the goalies. I mentioned we talk about the goalies. We just talked about the condensed schedule. they've mentioned it. I think Bott's talked about it. General manager Jason Bottrell,
Yep.
head coach Lane Lambert's talked about it. We've asked the different goalies about it. I think everyone except for Joey.
Yep.
But I don't know. Do you think the 3 goalies can work? I know Philly kind of did it last year. It's different because those guys were younger. I don't know. Just what do you think about it? Because we know, I know folks around here want to see Philip Grubauer bounce back. Of course. You do have Colin Giulianello here who worked with him down in Coachella Valley.
And he raved about, by the way. Loved him. Joey worked with him in Coachella. Loved him as well.
What does Joey's year look like, right? How does he, follow up last season? How much do you want to push him, right? Because you don't know. Maybe if the USA has an injury or something, maybe he goes...
It's him and Swayman for that number 3 spot.
Right.
So.
And then with Matt Murray, this is a guy who says he's healthy, says he's good to go.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you just whether it's the 3 goalies, potential of having that on the roster, or just the goalie situation in general?
This would be a great question for John. Because he's been around for so long, and
I am hoping to get him on.
Yeah, I'm curious to get his thoughts on this. I think we've seen the 3 goalies in the past. It's so difficult because you only have 2 nets in practice.
Yes,
you got 1 net in a game, right?
Yeah.
It's so hard for goalies to get reps in practice. It's so hard to simulate game action, game shots in practice. That being said, I think we're going to need all 3 goalies this year. Joey's your number 1.
Yep.
I have a feeling, and I've gotten no direction on this. I've got no inside knowledge, inside baseball on this, if you will, but I don't know I don't think they signed Matt Murray to stash him down in Coachella Valley.
Hang out in Coachella Valley.
I think you're going to see...
That's fair.
I think you're going to see 3 to start. Maybe when you come back from that long road trip out east, maybe, you give first 10 games of the year, first 12 games of the year, you get each player 4 games, right? And then you go from there.
Assess from there, see how it all plays out.
But Joey's your number 1. I think defensively, like we talked about, if he's got a good structure in front of him, if he's got a good group in front of him, I think Joey, who was statistically a top 5 goaltender last year in just about every category but wins, you know what I mean? Or I guess win-loss record. I think Joey... He loves the challenge. He wants to play every day. If he could, and he'll tell you, if he could, he'd play all 82, right? So I don't worry about Joey, but I do think the defense's job in front of him, the defense in front of him, that's going to be their main job, is to make life a little bit easier on him, give him a few more plays off, maybe cut down his shots 2 to 4, 2 to 5 a game.
Yeah.
Because those pile up a little bit over the course
they build
of
up,
schedule.
for sure.
So, but no, I the goaltending schedule, I don't envy Lane and Ron and Bots and whoever's pulling those strings and whoever's going to make that decision. I don't envy those guys because either way, if you do send someone down, you're sending down a really good goalie, or if you're keeping 3, a really good goalie isn't getting the time and the work that they would like and frankly that they probably need.
Yeah, and a separate thing, maybe we talk about this another day, but in Coachella Valley, Nikkei Coco has looked, when we got to see him, looked more than ready.
Yeah.
So I imagine he'll build up the entire year in the AHL. Yeah. Victor Ostman hasn't looked bad.
Looked really good. I thought he was very good,
those 2 could be up-and-comers, and, if Murray's up here, those 2 could hang out, the 2 young goalies of the Kraken future in Coachella Valley.
And Coco is the goalie of the future, right? And it's, you look at a lot of teams. I look at Shesterkin with the Rangers. I look at Vasilevsky with the Lightning, right? Ottinger, Hellebuck in Dallas and Winnipeg. You look at these teams that have franchise generational goalies, and I think the Kraken drafted Coco in hopes that he had a really good year over in Finland when he played over there, and now he's learning that North American style of play. He's still very young as well, but you're hoping that Nikkei Coco, once the Joey contract is up and you can, maybe you re-sign Joey, you got 4 years to decide that, or maybe for whatever reason, you hand off the reins eventually. But I do think that Coco, they're very high on him, and Ostman, I think, has looked really good in the little bit of a sample size that we've gotten with him.
It's fun to have those two because, I mean, in the early few years with the prospects, you're like, all right, who's it going to be? Anyway, I know we've been going a little longer than I thought we would. This one's
I love you, man.
A personal one for you.
Oh, yeah.
This is year 5 of Everett.
Year 5
in this job.
Yes.
I remember meeting you before the first season, and it's like, oh, I know who this guy is. And Everett and I are good buddies.
Yep.
We give each other. It's my show. I can say what I want. We give each other shit here and there
all the time.
I don't know. What is it like? Seattle's been a different place than where you've been before. Just what does year 5 mean to Everett Fitzhugh now?
It's still hard for me, number one, to believe that I'm in the NHL and I get to do this for my job. This is my dream. Ever since I was a 17-year-old freshman at Bowling Green State University. State University. This is my dream to get to the NHL. So to do it here, to do it with an expansion franchise, to do it in a market that has never had pro hockey at this high of a level. I grew up in Detroit. I remember the late 90s Stanley Cup runs the Red Wings went on. And the same intensity and passion that I saw from the fan base in Detroit, you see here in Seattle. It's been so much fun watching our community and watching our fans go from, hey, let's go to a Kraken game because it's new. Let's go to a Kraken game because they redid the Coliseum and now the arena looks great. They've gone from that to, hey, this Matty Beniers kid is really, really good.
Yeah.
This Shane Wright kid is really, really good. Man, we love Grubauer. You're now seeing the casual sports fans become diehard sports fans.
Yep.
They're holding the organization accountable, which is great. You want to see that, right? Look,
it's passion.
Look at the passion the Mariners fans have, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're not there yet, and I think sometimes, thankfully, because sometimes I feel like Mariners fans are going to mutiny at some point, but they keep on coming back. So they're doing something right over there. But no, the fans have been great. For me personally, I mean, I work with such a great group of people. I worked with Dave Tomlinson my first 2 years. Now Al and these last 2, and now this one. Mike Benton, one of the hardest working person I think I've ever met. And then just everybody here makes this place so fun to work. And I think to me, one of the most important people that I've met, and I owe a lot to this guy. His name is Shar. And he is a young Seattle kid.
Who is this?
16, 17 years old. Big baseball fan. Went to O'Day. And he's so passionate about what he does. And he loves everything.
Who are we talking about?
Shar.
Who I don't know who that is.
You. Shar. Chuck E. Cheese. No. But no, it's been great, man. And this has been the best 5 years of my life. I've met so many great people. I get to live out my dream.
You're raising a son.
I'm raising a son out here. My wife, my son. We're happy. We finally unpacked boxes after this year. This will be the longest time I've ever lived in one city.
Wow.
Yeah, outside of Detroit growing up.
Yeah.
I was in Chicago for a year and a half. I was in Youngstown for a year. I was in Cincy for 5. So now I'm going on year 6, season 5 here in Seattle. So this is home for me. And I could not be happier. I could not be more grateful to the organization, to the city, to the fans, the folks who listen and support us every day. It's been awesome. It's been so great. And to Charles.
So we've seen a little bit of camp. I've missed a good amount of it with this Mariners playoff run. I know you guys haven't been at every one, a good amount of them. You've been at a couple, all right? Outside of the Lane era, where we've actually heard him yelling at players, not that, well, what the word he used was encouraging. After one of the camp sessions. What stood out to you from camp? Because I know it was funny talking to a few other media members, as you've already heard now from Tim Booth from the Seattle Times and Everett Fitzhugh of the Seattle Kraken Audio Network. A lot of the storylines were about Berkeley coming into camp and really solidifying himself, right? Which I think he did. We will talk about the children. And a lot of folks were looking at, is there going to be a controversy for the backup goaltender? Not really, because there's 3 of them. I don't know. What stood out to you from camp as we, tonight turn the page from the preseason and head into the regular season? It's been so weird, especially with Camp 2 after they played that last regular season game and they've had like 8 days in between that and their opener. It's so bizarre. Miracle, I don't know. What stood out to you from camp? Besides how fucking cold it gets in the rink, I forget about that.
Every
Uh
year.
and JT, especially with this being your first camp, Miracle, in this capacity at least.
They looked like they I'm trying to word this to a way it doesn't sound like I'm shitting on past coaching administrations. I feel like they took it a little more seriously than past camps that I've seen. There was more intention behind it. Like everybody seemed to buy in. I don't know if that's because of the new coaching staff. I don't know what that is. New roster, new people, new year. It was just maybe just a perfect storm. I don't know. But it did seem that there was more intention and they put more behind what they were doing. I think it helps, like we talked about, that Lane is very vocal and he's gonna, give them feedback right away instead of waiting or whatever. I don't know. They just worked harder. That's it. They look like they worked harder. He backskated them like the freaking first week of whatever training camp. So I was like, damn, okay, I guess we're not playing around this year. So I think that was pretty much.
I agree. A lot of it felt more intentional. Everything, all of the drills felt more like intense. There was a lot of intention behind every single thing that they were doing on the ice, and I think that that's really important going into a season where uh fans are expecting more. But I
Yeah, well,
yeah. Um, but I think that there was a lot more intention. I think that it seemed like all the players had pretty good things to say following the like camp practices. I don't know. I liked what I saw. I think that that's part of why I'm a little bit more open to the idea of Lane Lambert now. I really liked what I saw from him in camp. I think that he communicates really well with the players. He's obviously loud, making it very clear what he is expecting from them. Um, Feels like there's like no doubt about what they need to be doing. And we saw a couple times if they weren't doing something that he wanted them to be doing, he would fully just stop and be like, okay, nope, reset, start over, essentially like take it from the top. So that was kind of nice to see that he wasn't just like letting mistakes slide through the cracks. It was more like, okay, no, I'm seeing what you're doing this wrong, do it again, right this time.
I think like to pair what you just mentioned, um, and the word intention, right? It goes back to what we talked about with Lane, um, earlier with the early impressions from him, but it's just, knowing what these guys should be doing, how they want it to be done. And even today, when Lane spoke after camp, he was talked about, with some of the young guys, we're going back to the young guys, and what the expectation is for them on this roster and trying to carve out the role. And he basically hearing the messaging, if you're in the lineup, play your game. Like just getting this idea out of what they want you to do, even simplifying it for some of these younger players who are just getting their taste of the NHL, I think is going to be helpful because if you put a lot, especially in a young player's head, like short circuit the kid, right? You don't want them to. I know I short circuit with a ton going on already. There's so much. I forgot that they play again on Saturday. God damn it! I have to figure that out now. Um, so um, I think the intention is a big thing because, and one of the things that I don't know if I'm breaking news here or if it'll be like people will find out more over the course of the season, but the morning skates are shifting to Climate Pledge Arena from what I understand. The morning skates will not be at the Kraken Community Iceplex, which will be a little
Oh.
disappointing for some fans, which I understand
Ah.
because they won't be able to see them. I don't imagine they'll open it up so people can come and watch. That seems like more work for people on the arena staff to deal with. Um, and I like the idea of that, you know, is to, bring it back, to the arena that you're going to play on the ice of that night. Some people say, oh, it's all the same ice. Not necessarily. Um, you know, and especially with how many, I don't know if how much we like mentioned it on social, but Jade will remember the morning skates that became optional, and it's, come and get what you need. That became a little too lackadaisical, a little bit of too show the effort you want to show. That's not happening here. You know, I'm sure they'll have optionals. Again, with a condensed season, that will have to happen. They can't necessarily run them to death. Um, but it it does seem different in that regard, especially. So, and even like to go back to it again, what we've heard about the Lambert era, some guys seem to enjoy how much harder they've been working.
It
I'm
certainly seems
wondering
like it.
how much of a welcome change this is. We've talked about some guys, this is the hardest camp they've been in. They're tired, so on and so forth. I'm sure playing, playing hockey, 8 days of just practicing and not playing a game has them eager to go. But yeah, I'm sure the conditioning, the bag skates that you mentioned, um, stuff like that will have them prepared for a longer regular season, the back to backs, hopefully, stuff like that. So, um, I guess, and I'm sure I'll write something up, but I'm not going to sleep. I'm not sleeping tonight. It's not happening. There's too much to do. A written, storylines, things to watch out, questions for the season. What are you guys looking for with this season? Obviously, not everything happens tomorrow. The season is not decided in one game. For some people, it is. Josh Mahura's Norris will be in the mail, you know,
As it should be.
Muzz, who's very Canadian.
So Canadian.
Aggressively so.
What questions do you have for the season? What storylines are you watching? What little things are you looking at for the 25-26 season? Miracle, you first, because I went to Jade twice first, if I remember correctly, and then Jade, of course.
How do you remember that? I've already forgotten. I was just sitting here like, who went first last time? Is it me?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't even know who I am anymore at this
I'm
point.
here for the vibes.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's what
Honestly,
podcasts are, though, aren't they?
and I think with this team, you have to be mostly here for the vibes at some point because we're still figuring shit out, especially, 5 years in, new everything. I think I'm most excited to see them. I just want some progress. Like, I just want to see them clicking and kind of, even if they can't execute on the ice, at least if I can see that they know what they should have done or where they should have been, I'll be happy. It's a lot of, in past seasons, it was a lot of skating around like, where do we go? What should we be doing? Why are both of our D-men on the same fucking corner doing the same fucking thing while the puck's on the other side of the ice? Anyway, like that, I just want to see more like wherewithal of where you are on the ice and like what you should be doing. And so far, I think we have. They've in practice in the couple preseasons, they might not always execute it, but they knew where they were supposed to be or they knew what the play was supposed to look like. So I'm hopeful to see that keep going. Um, I'm very interested about the goaltending situation. I want to see if we're going to carry three. Is that the plan forever? How are you going to do that? Are we going to do one backup, one whatever? That'll be interesting to watch happen. I don't know. What else? What else
I'm
happens this year?
I'm looking forward to seeing just kind of honestly kind of how the season plays out with all of the off-season acquisitions, with the few moves that were made last season, like just with the team how it is now. I'm really excited to see like how they all mesh together and how they all end up playing hockey together. Because I feel like I don't know, it's so weird because like a lot of these guys have been playing together for so long, or they've been like direct rivals with some of the guys that are there now, or like the Ryan Lindgren and Capo Caco thing, where I know Capo's out right now, but like they used to play together. Now they're coming back and playing on another team together. Like it's one of those things like I'm interested to see kind of how everything melts together, essentially. And I am not expecting anything out of this team this year aside from finding an identity,
Yeah.
having a little bit more intent when they play. That feels like kind of the word of the night is intent and intention. I would like to see a little bit more just from them in general. Like you said, it doesn't have to be a win. I don't need to see a win every single night. I'm not expecting that in any way, shape, or form, but I do want to see more like cohesiveness and like you said, like awareness of like what did you do wrong? You know that you did that wrong? Okay, cool. Hopefully I don't see that again in 2 games kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I'm really hoping to see just change, honestly. And I hope that they do get to a point where it's a little bit more like, okay, cool. We've got this foundation laid out. How do we continue on from here? And how do we keep growing, keep going in that direction?
I think if they get the identity that they said that they are planning to find this year, that's all I want. I'll be happy. Like
Yeah.
we're not going to have a blowout season. That's just not
Yeah.
in the cards for us. I don't see it. If we do, hell yeah, I'm on board. But I'm just going to be happy to see them become a flippin' team. Like that's
Mhm.
just cohesive teamwork. Please, for the love of
Yeah.
God.
I agree.
Cohesive
All I want.
teamwork, please.
I don't think the identity thing, I know that in a group chat I talked about this recently. I don't want them to go out and just like start killing people on the ice, but like I would like to see a little bit more grit from all of them. They're we're looking at a team of relatively gritty guys. They're not afraid to fight. They're not afraid to get into a situation. TM. Uh, so I think that they kind of need to lean into that a little bit.
I wouldn't be mad about that. I feel like we kind of have this reputation of you can push us around.
Exactly.
I would like that to go away. Like you don't
I
have to fist fight every night. You don't have to be John Hayden out there beating ass every night. Just,
I think that that's what I was saying with the Lindgren thing recently is like I know the kind of player that he is. Like Charles said earlier, you know what you're getting with Lion Lindgren.
Yes,
New nickname to
his
drop.
brother.
writing that down right now.
So you know what you're getting with him, and I'm not expecting him to go out there and just knock a whole other team out, but like, can you make the other guys be a little bit more, don't push our fucking guys around, because it is a little bit pathetic sometimes watching that, just injury after injury, fight after fight, and it's like just like, okay, cool, we're just losing everything, losing
Totally
games, losing
fine.
fights, losing our guys.
I feel
I'm
like we
hoping
saw
that
a little bit more of it, like after the possible whatever happened with Pospisil and Dunn again.
yeah.
But it's always Dunn and Lars.
Yeah.
They're the only two. And I'm like, can somebody else maybe,
Yeah, that's
just a
why I'm
little.
One of
hoping
you,
that
please grow a pair of balls.
exactly. So I'm hoping that Lindgren, and I'm genuinely hoping that the addition of Marchment, because I also, you know what you're getting with Marchment.
I'm
I'm
so
hoping
excited.
that those two will really start to bring that identity to the Kraken. And like I said, it does not need to be a team of elbowers, and it doesn't need to turn into the fucking Florida Panthers.
I will quit. You'll never see me again. I'll be done.
But
Everybody,
yeah,
everybody in the box. Everybody.
but I would really enjoy seeing a little bit more grit this year.
I
Throw
will,
Grit,
them in
grind, toughness.
derogatory.
the one thing I will give the Panthers, the one and only thing, they are a team. They do everything together. They're
Oh,
always together. They're doing all that shit. Like that's a team. That's what I want. Like you don't have to be everything else where they're the way they play. No, please God, don't do that. But I like how they do everything together. Like they care about each other. They're out all the time doing shit together. And I feel like if we had a little, not to say that we don't or that they hate each other, we don't see that, like that, not at all. But I feel like if we had a little more of that mindset of like it's all for the team, not just each person individually, maybe we would be more likely to stand up for one another and not let our guys get pushed around. I don't know. It's just that's what I would like to see.
I get what you mean.
Please don't play it like the Panthers. Don't do that.
Yeah, no.
Florida men derogatory. Such a when you're saying they're a team, I was like, they certainly are a team. They do exist. Yes. This is in regards to the original question, uh Does Matty Beniers know how to take an offensive jump this year? I feel like I've been talking about this for years. The 200-foot game is there with Matthew Beniers. He is 22. Sorry, been told not to say his name like that. With Matty Beniers. Um,
By him?
the 200-foot game is there. That's great. Can you learn to score the puck yourself? Why do you look so confused?
Me?
No.
We're both confused. Who said not to call him Matthew Beniers?
When he first got drafted, the Kraken's PR staff sent out a email that said, well, no, in his draft email, where they got all these little stats in college and this and that. It says he does not want to be called Matthew. Please refer to him as Matty.
Oh,
And
okay. I
that's
didn't know that.
on
Good to know.
everything. It says Matty Beniers. It's never Matthew.
Oh, Matt is just wrong. Matt Beniers?
Yeah.
Who is that? No.
Matt Beniers here. Welcome back. I don't know why he's Canadian either. He's American. Anyway, yeah. Does he take a jump? As I feel like we talked about, I think Jade and I talked about this, but with Capo injured for this part of the season, you're not going to have a guy that you saw a big jump with offensively when he got traded here last year. You got to figure it out, man. Like they gave you the long-term deal. You're getting paid $7 million a year through 29-30. They didn't get the bridge deal that they probably wanted. They had to mark up and give you they said we believe in the rest of your development. You've got to take the offensive jump. What happens with the older Kraken, with the original year guys, the inaugural year guys? Jaden Schwartz is a free agent at the end of this year. Your captain, Jordan Eberle, is a free agent at the end of this year. How it depends on how the season goes, I'm sure. You can also look at it with Jordan Eberle. He missed a ton of last season with that weird, bizarre injury that he's talked about recovering from. It was in Jade's piece she did with him about his Sticks and Strings Foundation. Lots of writing to happen. A lot of writing that's already happened already this season. All of us have put out features already. Um, uh, yeah, I like, what does it look like having Jordan, hopefully, for a full season this year? What does Jared McCann look like? While he's been your leading scorer for what feels like the eternity of
Ever since the
franchise,
inception of the
he didn't necessarily have a great year last year, and even then, he led you in points. Like,
I don't think nobody had a great year last year, so I don't think it's fair to be like, you didn't have a great year.
We also can't necessarily always be fair to them. These are grown men; they can deal with it. You know, I'm excited for more Jared McCann. Ever since he signed the first real major extension here, right? And said he wanted to win in Seattle. Like that is a guy that will endear yourself to a franchise, which we know he has, right? I think that's pretty clear. What does that look like? Ellie Tolvanen is also a free agent at the end of this year. Ellie Tolvanen's come in, been a great story, coming in in the second year off waivers, a Nashville team that didn't know what to do with him, and now with the Kraken, at times he was on the fourth line. I don't think he wants to do that. So what does this year look like for him? Does he establish himself? Does he push away? We'll see. Like Cartier, kind of in a similar situation in terms of how they use him, right? I have to put that feature out after talking with him, also very Canadian. He's a guy who, when we talked to Dan Bilesma, I think Jay will remember from her first training camp in this role. I asked him, I was like, Dan, you've coached this guy. What do you want to see from him? He mentioned his shot on the fourth line. You can't necessarily display that offensive skill a ton, not necessarily because of the role you're playing, part of it, but also the lack of minutes you get, right? So that's something, I'm curious. Those two guys, different situations in a way, but also not so much in terms of their the roles that they're trying to fight out of. How do they utilize Berkeley Catton too, right? Because he's on the roster. He's made the opening night roster. You know what you're going to get skill wise from the guy. You know the sort of player he can be there. But obviously, how does he handle the physical toll of the NHL? Guys will surely go after him. I don't doubt that, right? Or not intentionally at times, I'm sure, because he's a child. And if you're a bigger guy, you can just, right? Yeah. What does that look like for him? What kind of jump does Yanni Newman take? I feel like you both have heard me talk about how much I like the game that Yanni Newman plays. I'll still never forget being in LA the morning skate against the Kings and being like, "Hey Dan, what have you liked from what he's played so far? And what role is he going to play? Who is taking extra skates because he's getting sent down that morning?" Yanni Newman. I was like, "God damn it! What do you couldn't have told me this?" Um, I like he's got a great shot and he should ideally help your power play. Um, that's another thing. That last game, I think we all kind of looked at it as like, hey, what are these special teams? They're teams for sure.
There were
Yep.
They're
people
not
on
that
the ice.
there are people there, you know. I am excited too for Shane and the year that he'll have after having a full NHL season under his belt, really coming alive after, a rough stretch to begin the year last year, right? Gotta put that piece out after I talk to him. Um, Jamie Alexiak is a guy I've not been high on. It's a contract year, buddy. What are you gonna do?
He's
He'll
done.
be
I think he's done. He's impressed me in preseason so far. I'm not gonna lie.
preseasons look better. So I'm
Yeah.
wondering if this is like him aware. I think I talked to Jade about this in camp too. When I saw him like actually using his physicality, I'm like, hey, does he know? Like, is he aware of himself now? It's like, hey, I am giant. Like, I can use my physicality now. They
When he
call me
flattened Furcus that day, I was like, "Oh, okay, he's got it again. Like we're trending in the right
flung
direction."
him aside like he was a horsefly. Like,
Poor little guy. He zoomed across.
but that is also what he should be doing. It shouldn't be this guy is applying pressure on you and taking the puck potentially. You know, so a lot goes on in this giant like milk dud of a head. It's things like that. And I'm like, all right, what are you doing? On a night to night basis. Oh, I looked down all the way to the Pedia roster and I saw Joe Valetto and buyout. I was like, oh yeah, you existed. Also,
Momentary
too,
a day.
who makes their debuts for this team this year, right? Because unfortunately, as this team knows, injuries happen, call-ups will need to take place, and if things go the wrong way, you will be making call-ups to replace players, right? Who gets their shot, because the HL roster, while young, did a lot of guys that you drafted in the first few years. Who's gonna, take that shot, separate themselves? Um, yeah, I guess this last one, and I asked Tim about this in the section you guys will have seen. These two have not. Um, what do you hope to see this year? I know it's kind of relating to the last question, but you specifically, whether it's the fan part of you or just the I'm gonna have to write and talk about this team until probably April. I don't imagine they're gonna play into May. I would love to be surprised. Um, Covering any playoffs is very fun. It's still anxiety inducing. But anyway, for you specifically, to both because Miracle went first last time. Yes, to Jade and then Miracle, as you've switched places now. Um, from whether the fan in you, because it also exists. We have a job to do, but any writer will tell you, well, there are people who are freaks, so they might be wrong. So as a fan, a love for the sport that they cover, um, just from that perspective, or is it, like I said, from the perspective of someone who's going to have to cover whether that's writing or talking about this team for several months. What do you want to see from this Kraken team? It can be different from what the storylines you're watching, like we just talked about. Um, it's messed me up because I'm used to going Jade first, then Miracle. Now it's Jade. Nope. Then yeah. They switch places and it freaked me out. Jade, what you are hoping to see, whether it is from the fan inside of you or the writer that's going to have to deal with this team for several months.
Kind of the
And then
same thing, honestly. Some more physicality, some more like heart in the game, I guess. Like obviously players love the game. Obviously they have their heart in the game because they chose to do this for a career. But I would like to see a little bit more of that, like just in general. Like I would like it to be a little bit more like evident, if that makes sense. Like not just, yeah, I show up and I play hockey and then I go home and then I show up and then I play hockey. Like I want to see just like a little bit more from them. And obviously it would be really cool to see some wins. But it is also the Seattle Kraken, so I would like to see more Phil starts. I would like to see Philip on the ice more as a fan.
I don't know. I don't know. I want them to be happy. Like if it is winning, if it's I don't care what it is. I just want good vibes. Like I feel like the last couple of seasons have been fucking tough. And like by the middle of the season, everybody's kind of like Jade said, like here we go, time to show up and play hockey. So I just want them to to have something that motivates them. I just want to see them be happy. Like I think that would be as a fan, that would be fun. Like even if we're not winning, if they're trying and having a good time together, I'm good. Like you don't I my expectations are not we're gonna win a cup. We're gonna get there. Like no, I just want you guys to please 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 get it together just a little. Like um as for like things that we're covering, I tend to like talking about the players, thinking it like obviously their game's important and that's we should focus on that. But I also like to focus on like silly, weird stuff, like gum chewing, obviously. So I like fun, weird little things like that. That would be fun to write about. Just finding out like their little quirks and what makes them the people they are off the ice. I think that's fun to invest in. And I feel like the Kraken has a lot of fucking weirdos. I mean that affectionately. So I think that'll be fun and just getting to know them and as a team, I just want them to be happy, man. Please be happy.
I think kind of the
Yeah.
start of that, it made me think of like just refinding their like love for the game essentially,
Yeah.
just as a team as a whole, as a collective unit. But that's also, and I've talked about this a million times because I do genuinely think that this is true. And it was a pretty big thing that I said when the Will Borgen Capo Caco trade happened, that like sometimes a player just loses their spark. They lose their like drive, I guess. And that maybe not drive, but like whatever, close enough. And then they get traded and it's like a fresh start. They get a new team to play with and they tend to re-find whatever they've lost in their game. We saw that with Will Borgen, we saw that with Capo Caco, we see that with uh it feels like a lot of trades that happens with. I feel like we're gonna collectively see that with Mitch Marner going to Vegas. And I know that that sucks. I'm also bummed about it, but I do think that he's gonna re-find
He will.
the love for the game that, was gone. And so I think that that's important too, is I'm hoping that this year they can kind of find that again, find the spark.
Get out of that like doom and gloom complacency thing that I feel like we
Mhm.
fall into when we're losing. Okay, hello. When we're losing so consistently.
To that point, player morale,
That's the word. Morale. Good, thank you.
and the, player morale and the stories about them as players, it does go to what we do, right? If they're in a better mood, they're probably more likely to talk to us and more likely to, share more details about stuff we're working on. I mean, Lars seemed just tickled about the fact that people were interested in the fact that he chooses gum.
The highlight of my
And
life was
the
seeing him turn.
larcening.
I cannot believe we told Adam Larson about the Larson. I can't believe nobody told him until we got there. Like, come on. Like he's a huge deal on Twitter.
Someone's got to do it. But yeah,
I'll
no,
do
I
it.
mean,
Every day
and
of the
and
week
in
I'll do
that
it.
regard, like, there will be times where some of us, at least I know, will have some focus on the game itself and the numbers that go into these things. But, as I did today with the Mahura thing, there's people who want to know just about the players that they're supporting. I think that's important. People care about the human beings they're supporting, whether that's in a good way or a bad way, so that they can know not to invest money in them. Not looking into the camera for any reason. Like that's important. People like to know these backstories. They like to know the backstories. They like to know how someone became the way that they are. Right? So it's like there are different ways to operate that. And I feel like, as I've told both of these two on the show now, that there is some freedom with what we are doing to tell stories that maybe big wires. And that's not to downplay big wires or to mean them. Big wires, I mean like wire service, like they're, the Times, the ESPNs, the APs, so on and so forth, So, and it's, we'll see throughout the course of the year with, I'm sure I was going to try to get RJ on our preseason show, didn't work out, partially because playoff baseball has dominated my life for the past month, even though they haven't been in the playoffs for a month. Preparing for it has been terrible, terrible, and in terms of stress. But we'll do stuff with RJ. I'm sure we'll do stuff with Dylan because he keeps asking me when is he going to come on the show. I don't know, Dylan. We'll figure it out. We've had Baron on to do stuff, right? Like I have such respect for what happens at Emerald City Hockey and Sound of Hockey, and I think in the Seattle market, we've largely got a good group of people in the media space. So we're all telling different stories, and it should be fun. Hopefully, the year goes well so that these players have more good stories to talk about than bad. But we'll all see. It all starts tomorrow. So any just general final thoughts before the puck drops tomorrow night against the Anaheim Ducks and whatever they're doing, whatever is happening down in Anaheim? I'll open the floor. Either of you can go first. I guess it's whoever wants to speak first. Any final thoughts before the regular season starts?
I have no thoughts.
I
My
was going to
thoughts
say, I
are
don't
gone.
think I have anything. I feel like I've said everything that
thoughtless.
Thoughts.
I feel like I've said everything that I've had thoughts about. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel good with what we talked a long time. People are probably tired of hearing us talk, but
I'm
I feel
excited
good with what we talked about.
Yeah, I am also just excited for hockey to be back so that I have less to think about that isn't
Yes.
hockey.
Amen.
Just a bunch of guys on the ice. That's it.
On knife
Who knows
shoots.
what they're doing?
Usually not them.
Maybe it's a goalie goal. Watch, it's gonna be like Matt Murray who gets it. It's not gonna be Joey.
Poor Joey. If
Can you
Matt
imagine
Murray
if it's
gets
a
it before
teammate
him,
of his before him?
I would have to laugh.
he was so close in that preseason game. Who was the goalie that came back? I already forgot. He was leaving and he came back.
Oh yeah. Well, it's funny
shit,
because he
was-
said post game that he wasn't looking.
Yeah, he wasn't even trying. But that would have gone in if Homeboy hadn't come back.
They're
Who
playing.
was it?
Oh, it's Picard.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The former Thunderbird.
Picks. Yep.
Yeah. Can you imagine that too if he wasn't even trying and he got it, as opposed to like what 2 seasons ago against Minnesota?
It still counts.
Yeah, it still counts. Still goes in the record book. Unlike, oh God, who's the goalie who has won at like each level? There's one who had it in the NHL, at the AHL, and then I think might have been the ECHL too. I'm like, you're greedy. This is the greed they speak of in the Bible. You have to give one of those to somebody else. I'll remember.
I was really hoping that they would let Marc-Andre Fleury have one.
Seriously.
I was so mad that they didn't just put. It's preseason. Who cares?
Let him get it, man.
Columbus, pull the goalie, throw him away, let him get a goalie goal.
Leakin says, "Fuck it, I'm doing it myself," and he comes out and just stands next to it and just gestures, "Go."
He probably would, honestly.
I would have. It's fucking Flower. Like, yeah, man, go.
I would have just gone into the trapezoid just behind the net and just stood there.
Just watched.
Oh, look at me.
Come on, please.
Where am I? Oh my God. Well, until we see you next time, who knows when that'll be? We've got 2 games by the time that our next episode.
Episode.
If we're going back to the Monday schedule, we'll see. They don't play that day, so ideally. So we see you next time. From Miracle, Jade, Everett, and Tim, who are not here, and myself. Take care of yourselves. Be well. Whatever you can to make today a great day.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey. Where are you going to watch all those Kraken away games?
Kraken away games, making a push. I was thinking of coming here just because Rough and Tumble is the home of Circling Seattle Sports, only if that's okay with you.
I mean, I love that idea. Hope to see you here.